Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 234th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing great as always, Cameron. How about you?
I'm doing well. Coming off back-to-back Mizzou basketball wins.
I don't get to say that all that often.
Oh.
In conference season, at least.
Right. Yeah, it's been a good week for basketball. Looked a little scary last night. We'll get to that. We actually have some football news this week to get caught up on. Spring practices are underway. And yeah, before we get into all of that, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review where you listen to us. Of course, you can support us directly on Patreon. Patreon.com/Missouri Sports Pod is where you can find all of that. Yeah, let's get caught up on football news a little bit. There was a scary moment that came through Mizzou Twitter, and I'm sure trickled down into all corners of Mizzou fandom. Sam Horn left a baseball game with an elbow injury, and it felt for like a day and a half like the world was going to end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how much you watch baseball in this current age, Cameron, but anytime a pitcher leaves the game with like an elbow injury or, pointing to his arm or anything like that, just assume the worst is basically what I've learned, like in my limited time watching baseball, because I don't watch a lot of baseball anymore. But that's just almost never a good thing.
Yeah, just from throwing a pitch and then like, oop, something didn't feel right.
Yeah.
I need to come out. Yeah.
So, and, obviously we were assuming the worst, which is probably what, like Tommy John surgery, he's out for the whole year. See you next year. So that was absolutely like on the table as far as what I was thinking could happen, especially being a Mizzou fan. You just prepare yourself for that.
I don't think, just to point out, I don't think Tommy John surgery is quite as extensive a recovery as like a knee injury or something like that. So I don't think it would have been the end of the world, even if that was the case.
Still probably missing all of the off season and maybe the season as well, though.
Yeah.
So that was probably still like worst case scenario, but we came out pretty much unscathed. I think sounds like just a strain of some kind, a sprain even.
No ligament damage.
So I don't know what that means for Sam Horn's baseball career. Sounds like he's going to be out probably for a few weeks at the minimum, but we avoided the worst.
Yeah, Coach Drinkwitz gave a press conference, and he said that he won't be pitching for 2 or 3 weeks, but he could actually throw a football sooner than that because just the arm motion doesn't put the strain on the elbow. So, all things considered, we dodged a bullet there. No big deal.
We're about to have only one quarterback in spring football.
Yeah.
For a minute there. That's what I thought.
Yeah. That's what we've got temporarily.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Sam Horn, it sounds like he's pitching well, though.
Yeah.
He
was hitting 97.
Yeah. I don't have to tell you guys this. He's clearly a great athlete. Very talented player.
How tall is he? Off the top of your head?
I think he's 6'4", 6'5".
6'4", throwing 97.
He's a big dude.
That's impressive.
Yeah. You could tell, like, just in the limited time that he played last season in football, that he had insane arm talent. Like, just the balls just come out of his hands so well. So,
but he'll be fine.
He'll be fine. All's fine.
In other football news, Coach Drinkwitz was just updating the media and everybody about the team, and a couple notes that I wrote down. Luther Burden taking over the vacated slot wide receiver position now that Lovett is gone. What do you think of that?
Oh, I think that's great. I think that's his natural position, really, and that means he's going to line up, more on the inside. He's going to have some more kind of interior routes, maybe some shorter stuff. A lot of times that means he's going to be targeted a lot more than he would be if he were on the outside. So, yeah, Luther Burden, like 150 target season incoming.
Oh, man.
I'm just joking. That's obviously more targets he's going to get, but he's going to be peppered. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, and I fully expect him to still line up in the backfield sometimes and take sweeps and stuff like that. But, yeah, they'll just kind of be able to. I know this is kind of a touchy subject because it's gone poorly in the past, but I think from that slot position, they'll be able to manufacture touches for him easier and open up those outside positions for deeper passes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see it. Obviously, Dominic Lovett did just fine from that position.
Yeah.
Drinkwitz also said that freshman defensive back Marvin Burks could compete for playing time. Does that surprise you?
I don't know. I mean, coaches can say anything this time of year, but if he legitimately is fighting for playing time as a true freshman, I think I would be a little surprised. Yeah, even knowing how talented he is. Yeah, because I just know how difficult that is for like an 18-year-old kid to come in and play immediately.
Yeah. And maybe that's something you say about a kid that, was a big recruiting get. And yeah. Speaking of coaches saying anything and everything, he also said that Blake Craig would compete with Harrison Mevis at the kicker spot. Of course, he's a kicker. They'll be competing.
Yeah.
Mevis lost a little bit of his luster maybe recently. Missed a few kicks.
Yeah, he was maybe not quite as dependable as he's been this season. Still nailed all the long kicks, but yeah, on the short stuff that he wasn't as
maybe
nails.
Get a new name in there. Maybe wake him up a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
You think that's the strategy there?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like typically is it uncommon to recruit a specialist when you still have one on the you still have kind of like your guy on the roster? I feel like typically they try to time that a little bit better, but maybe they just felt like they couldn't pass up the opportunity on Blake Craig.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it'd be weird if they were closer in age, but I think they'll just have 1 year of overlap if everything goes according to plan.
Mm-hmm.
So
maybe I'm just thinking like NCAA 14 like recruiting.
No, I mean that's how it's gone for Mizzou. I feel like the last few starting kickers has been like, okay, your turn.
Yep.
To be the kicker, and then next guy.
Yeah.
Which it'll basically be that anyway. And I mean, you never know. Maybe Blake Craig will be the guy, but I bet Harrison Mevis has something to say about that.
Safe assumption.
Mizzou football got their first commitment of the 2024 class with Joplin tight end Whit Hafer, 3-star player and son of former Mizzou basketball player Jeff Hafer. He is listed at 6'7", 230 as a tight end in high school.
That's pretty good size for, I guess you would still be a junior right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is, I guess, is that 2 years in a row? Our first commit has been 3 years in a row.
Yes.
Our first commit's been a tight end.
Wisner, Norfleet, now Hafer.
Wow. Which it still feels like, and just because of how long like recruiting takes, it's just like none of these guys are playing yet or anything. Like it's a very drawn out process.
We're talking about Max Wisner, who hasn't done anything yet.
He's like a redshirt freshman now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's great though. Keep stacking the room. Those guys, that's gonna pay off eventually. It does take a long time, but February is pretty early to get your first commit, so that's a good sign. Get the ball rolling.
Yeah. Do you think for the football season, would you like to see the tight end involvement has just kind of like been confusing to me?
It's been nebulous for sure.
Yeah, and I can't figure out if it's like a scheme thing or if they just haven't had the guy at the position that they feel like they need.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think it's more so personnel.
Yeah.
I do because when Bazelak was here and Nico Hay was there, he had some good looks and was kind of the touchdown guy for a little bit there. But in a season that Missouri really struggled offensively overall. And
they incorporated Daniel Parker Jr. pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think that when the guy is there, they'll use him, and they've just had some good wide receiver talent too that they just probably want to funnel the ball to. But I think we're on the up and up for tight ends for sure.
Anything else football that you want to mention before we switch gears?
I think that's it, but it does seem a little bit early. I don't know. It's like it's already spring football. Like,
yeah, just kind of came out of nowhere. Maybe that's a factor of the basketball team playing well. Like
Yeah.
We're still super engaged there.
That's
like
probably
March
true.
Madness bubble talk, and then it's like, oh, football.
The spring game is the end of March, which seems really early. I mean, it's March now, so it's only like 2 or 3 weeks away.
Wow.
So it's gonna be a chilly one potentially.
Yeah.
But
it'd barely be spring.
yeah, man, I can't wait to see him out there though. See how the quarterbacks are looking, and I don't know. That's kind of just like, I don't know. That's the bare bones of your team. You know, the freshmen haven't come in yet. These are the kind of the next guys up. You get your first look at those guys that are going to be the next ones.
Let's see here. Mizzou basketball did get a commitment. Preferred walk-on JV Brown. Don't know much about him. Doesn't have much of a recruiting profile. Preferred walk-on, but welcome in.
What's your hot take on the use of the bat signal for a preferred walk-on? Are you in favor?
I don't care. Let everybody feel special.
I guess you have to, right?
Yeah. He committed. It was a basketball commit. I mean, if you're putting it all together, like with the class sizes and like what time of year it is, and that just kind of coming out of nowhere, the bat signal comes out, it's like,
Yeah, I mean,
this is probably going to be a preferred walk-on.
Right. I was thinking like this. I mean, we're on some pretty big guys right now, high school wise.
Yeah.
So this is either like a 5-star commit or like a walk-on and nothing in between. Just
Right,
because of
exactly.
the timing.
Yeah. So the likelihood, I don't know. It just felt like with roster math and stuff,
Yeah.
it felt like not a scholarship situation. All right, let's talk about these wins. Mizzou basketball beat Georgia 85-63. Missouri was losing by 1 at halftime, 41-40. Opened the second half with a 23-4 run, and in total outscored Georgia 45-22 in the second half.
Yeah. I mean, just like in the LSU game, man, they just turn it on for periods of time, and they just dominate. And anytime, I mean, we talked about this last week too. We kind of thought this might be an opportunity for Missouri to break the streak on the road of looking sluggish and not shooting well, and that's exactly what they did. And all it takes is just a defense that isn't quite as a pest as like Mississippi State or A&M or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's all it took.
Yeah, Georgia way less physical than those teams, and I mean, the second half, when Missouri turned it on, I mean, it made obviously the final score looked incredible, and Missouri's shooting stats were amazing. Shot 66% from 2, 50% from 3 on 28 attempts. Only got to the free throw line 9 times, though, but I guess when you shoot 33s, that's kind of what's going to happen. They did turn Georgia over 19 times. Love to see that. Nick Honor was the KenPom MVP, 17 points, 4 assists, no turnovers. He's had a handful of games where he's had 4 or 5 assists and 0 turnovers.
Yeah, man, some of those Conso teams could have really used a player like Nick Honor. Just facilitate the offense, score when you need to, but mainly just don't turn the ball over. Just be a reliable ball handler.
We kind of have 2 of those guys. I mean, East is very similar with that description, and maybe a little bit less consistent as far as making mistakes, but again, a Conzo team would have taken either one of those guys.
Yeah.
Kind of a slow game for Kobe Brown. He's even including the LSU game, he's had a little bit of a slump here. His team has had to kind of pick him up a little bit, but I was looking at his 3-point shooting, and let me pull it up here. In the last 3 games, all been wins, but Kobe is 1 of 8 from 3. And in his previous 4 games, only 2 of those were wins. He was 11 of 19 from 3. So it's interesting how like him specifically, his 3-point shooting doesn't necessarily correlate to wins and losses.
Yeah, Demoy Hodge definitely.
Yes.
But yeah, Kobe Brown, just because I think he can help in other ways. But I have noticed, the last couple of games he hasn't been quite as on from the 3-point line, but he still has had some great drives and stuff where he just kind of, I don't know, makes some crazy moves, and he's got great touch around the basket usually, and has kind of found other ways to get involved.
Yeah, and he's rebounding the ball well, finding the open man. There's a few times where he still needs to be quicker passing out of the double team, but he's getting double teamed so much that, I mean, I remember back to like Jeremiah Tillman getting double teamed, and it was like a coin flip whether he was going to make a spectacular play or lose the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we're better than a coin flip when Kobe gets double teamed. Hodge had 18 points against Georgia, 6 of 11 from 3. All of his points came on made threes.
Yeah. And it seemed like a lot of it was in the second half, maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of like LSU.
Yeah, we might as well just kind of bundle these games together.
I mean, it was like so weird how they both kind of played out in the same way, where in the first half it was like, all right, just get your threes out of your system. Like, you're shooting way better than you ever do in any game ever. And it's like, okay, just do this, and then once you stop, we'll be fine. We'll get back in it.
Yeah. The more, it's like coming down to the end of the regular season, obviously. And I feel like I'm just now, maybe in the last week or so, kind of figuring out Missouri defensively.
Is bad?
They are, but like they just let the team have open threes.
Right. That's the plan.
Yeah. And you'll see just interesting things, like when a guy drives baseline or like elbow extended, the on-ball defender will just kind of let him go sometimes. And then the guy under the basket is supposed to step up and take him. Mm-hmm. And with the way Missouri's defense switches everything on the perimeter, they actually extend that to like every interaction on the court on defense. They're switching it. And you see guys just like taking another offensive player and basically like directing their teammate to go over here. Mm-hmm. It is kind of interesting, but if those rotations aren't super clean and you're just rotating constantly on every defensive possession,
right,
with the way that Missouri plays defense, you're just going to leave open shooters sometimes.
Yeah, it does seem like the more we watch them, we've kind of figured out like, okay, yeah, they're probably not the greatest defensive team. They're not the best rebounding team, but they like schematically are choosing to kind of give up some of these things in order to get more runouts or,
yes,
more steals. It's definitely like a high risk, high reward type defense. And if you don't have Demoy Hodge, then maybe it doesn't work as well.
Right.
But he's so good at creating havoc on the perimeter and kind of picking pockets and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you see stretches every single game. It doesn't matter who they're playing. Maybe the only time this didn't happen was like against Kansas and Alabama, where the offense gets sped up and they're like passing the ball around, but it's sloppy. They almost turn it over 2 or 3 times. Sometimes those possessions are turning into easy 2 points the other way, but sometimes they're turning into a wide open 3, wide open layup. And it's like, but it is like clockwork. Every single game, there's somebody on the other team that's shooting like 23% from 3 on the year that makes 3 first half 3-pointers.
Yeah.
And just like, okay, well. Okay.
How much did Adam Miller score last night? It seemed like he hit at least 5 or 6 threes.
Adam Miller had 17 points, 5 of 9 from 3. And of course,
but they said he was only like a 30% shooter this year. Like, he's had kind of a down year, but he looked like his old self last night.
Yeah, he's 32% on the year. But there was a couple plays in that game where they just dissected Missouri's zone. Mm-hmm. I mean, the broadcast crew covered that pretty well. Mm-hmm. But he just set up in the corner.
Yeah,
it's wide open.
They were kind of using like the screen, kind of pick it and then kind of find when they draw the double team over here and then the screener kind of just moves over for an open 3. They were doing that well in the first half. Yeah,
they have some creative sets there, and I wonder, I'd have to watch them play somebody like Tennessee that actually has a legitimately good defense that's like fundamentally sound. But I wonder, I feel like there's half a dozen little plays like that would just are going to result in wide open 3s against Missouri.
For sure.
So in this LSU game, Missouri was down 19 points at one point, and it was like, well, my mindset was we were bound to lose one of these road games. It's not going to be quadrant 1, and how do you really expect to go all season not dropping one of these?
Yeah.
And they just stormed back in the second half.
Like immediately after halftime, they were back in it. But
had it down to single digits within a minute of the second half.
The whole first half just didn't go well, but and I honestly wasn't really panicking at all until it got to a certain point, and then I was like,
it's over.
It might be over. It might be too big of a lead to overcome. When they were like in the 40s and Missouri was in the 20s at one point, there was just like something about that first number. If it's like 2 digits higher, then it's like, okay, I think we're too far out of this.
Yeah, and I think John Sunville did exactly what I've done in the past. We like called for a Mizzou run. Like they got to do something here to get back in this, and then LSU like makes a 3 and goes up by more than they had like their biggest lead of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. But Golston and Hodge, they were the ones that kept it. I almost said they single-handedly. They together single-handedly kept it from getting too far away. And, I mean, they're the only reason it wasn't over in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Golston just making guys jump, using his pivot foot, up and under moves. They were isolating him, finding mismatches for him, and he was getting it done.
Yeah, I thought, obviously Golston was great. Hodge had some super clutch threes. I mean, he just hitting 3 after 3, it felt like. And I thought Noah Carter had some really clutch plays kind of down the stretch. He was getting some key rebounds and putbacks and stuff like that. Hit a couple threes. So, yeah, everybody just kind of – it was a pretty balanced effort, and everybody was kind of doing their part there in the second half.
I thought it was interesting. There were 3 separate 13-2 runs in this game. LSU started the game on a 13-2 run. Mizzou, end of the first half, beginning of the second half, 13-2 run, and then ended the game on a 13-2 run.
Wow.
So the win probability graph is a nice roller coaster.
I mean, in some ways, it just kind of makes sense that the analytics, in my opinion, just don't really know what to do with Missouri because they just play in such a unique way. Like, how many teams do you know look for a 3-pointer on a fast break? Like, I mean, they probably not very many. And even in today's game, I just like they'll have numbers and then just throw it out to Demoy Hodge or Nick Connor will just pull up from if he's even remotely open in transition and stuff like that. And they're just. It's kind of like we talked about earlier. They just give up rebounds. They give up open shots. Like, they're just choosing to do some of these things to gain an edge in another way. And, maybe that's kind of revolutionary in some ways. And the analytics, I think, are confused sometimes by that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you just look at their KenPom page, and we've talked all year about their defensive efficiency numbers. And, like, right now, they're 190 on defensive efficiency.
Which in some ways feels like they could actually be worse than that.
Right. But it's insane how, like, turnover percentage defense, steal percentage defense, they're 5th and 2nd in the country.
Yeah.
And then 3-point field goal percentage, 284th. Offensive rebound percentage, 362 out of 363.
Nice.
So it's just like these...
Yeah. Every single metric.
Completely polar opposites on half the metrics, and then the other half defensively are just like elite.
Yeah, and just even offense versus defense. Offense is probably top 10, I'm assuming still, and defense is 190. Like, everything about Missouri's game is just like mirrored completely.
It makes me super curious to see next year, 2-3 years from now, just basically each season now, I'm going to be like super cued into how is Coach Gates sort of forming a game plan around his players' strengths and weaknesses. And obviously, we're almost done with the season. He has done that with this squad as best as you possibly could, I feel like, to like maximize those strengths defensively. Now, they could go, I'm imagining they could run a defensive scheme that brings those polar opposites a little bit closer to each other. But then you're sacrificing any, none of it would be elite then. Right. You're not forcing turnovers at an elite pace if you're also not giving up as many offensive rebounds.
Yeah, and next year, obviously, we won't have Hodge. We won't have Golston. There are some key players kind of that I feel like these schematics are built around that we will not have next year. So it will be pretty fascinating to see how they change in some of those ways.
I was thinking the other day about what Cleveland State team would look like this year with Hodge and Gomillion and whoever else he could have brought in. I don't want to think. Yeah, I don't want to think about it too much, but it is just kind of insane. Like, these guys were on Cleveland State last year.
Yeah.
And like Hodge especially, Golston was at Milwaukee.
Yeah, like limited athletically. These
Yeah.
guys are not like high pedigree athletes.
Right.
Like,
They weren't, 5-star guys,
No.
and not even on SEC teams' radars.
but they're just being used really, really well.
Yeah. And they're older guys who have
Yeah.
learned how to play. And
I
like
think that's a big part of it.
the broadcast crew was talking about Golston. He's been in these situations so many times, and he knows when he gets the ball, he knows if he can take his defender or not.
Yeah.
Now he's got the confidence and the ability to most of the time give it a try.
It's a grown man out there.
Yeah. He was making some moves like that transcend like old man ball. He was like doing the old man move, but then making like an impressively athletic finish with it. Man. He's
something.
Yeah, looking at his profile and just looking at his points, I don't remember a guy that has so many like 15 plus games scoring and so many zeros. If you look down the list, it is kind of insane. We just need a few more of those. Let me see any big points here. Yeah, in the LSU game, though, Mizzou, you mentioned, I think you mentioned them not taking the lead until like a minute and a half left. It looked like there was potential where the way Missouri was playing, they were just going to run away with it.
Yeah.
But then LSU was able to answer and be like, okay, we're not going to let our 19-point lead go away this easily.
Yeah, and Missouri tied it with like 10 minutes to go in the game.
Yeah.
After being down 19 late in the first half. So they closed that gap like so fast. And then, yeah, it was like, okay, well, are we just going to, have we broken LSU spirit at this point? Like, it seems like we're just going to probably end up winning this by double digits. Like, we could do that. But LSU did not back down.
And so, of course, we win by 5, which is exactly the advanced metrics prediction.
Yep.
So we don't get any credit, basically, for the win.
Exactly how I'm sure they predicted we would get there.
Right. Yeah, honestly, like 81-76, I feel like that is exactly what Kempom was predicting before the game. His formulas, they know something.
They just know.
I was impressed with Missouri not missing a free throw against LSU. That is like one thing when those comeback attempts fall short and you look back, you're like, oh,
yeah.
X amount of times we had a chance to
For sure.
tie it at the free throw line or something.
What did we predict last week for LSU?
I'd have to go back and look, but something pretty close to that.
Probably pretty close.
Oh, don't forget about, of course, the classic thing of like this player who doesn't normally shoot lights out coming in and making threes.
Oh, yeah.
In the LSU game, it was a walk-on senior who got the start on senior night, Parker Edwards, and his first 2 shots are made threes. That was part of that 13-2 run for LSU to start the game.
Yeah, that felt like a bad omen. Yeah. They put him back in the game at one point. I mean, like he goes in there, drains 2 threes, and then it's like, do we leave him in? Like, because they called a timeout or something. There was a timeout or something like that, and it was. I remember kind of thinking like they could leave this dude in, but they did not. No. But then he did come back in the game later.
Yeah.
And didn't do anything.
6 minutes, 6 points.
Good for him.
2 shot attempts, 2 makes, 1 foul.
He's got a story.
Oh yeah. Although, like, if I don't know that I would have thought much of it. Like, obviously, he wasn't on the scouting report, but I don't know. LSU not winning many games. If they're like, yeah, we're trying something different, bringing this guy off the end of the bench. He made the shot,
Gave him a spark.
Why would I have questioned it?
Did you see the bench reaction when he made the 3?
Yeah, the second one. Yeah.
That's why you'd question it.
Yeah, I guess so. So Missouri now 22-8 so far. 1 regular season game left. Let me look back here. They won 20 games, Konzo's first year. Frank Haith's last year, they won 21 regular season games.
Which was 13, 14?
Yeah. 12-13 season, they had 22 regular season wins. So Phil Pressey's last year with Lawrence Bowers. And then, of course, they had 27 regular season wins the year before that.
Jeez.
So, yeah, if we beat Ole Miss last game of the season, this is one of the better seasons in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Gee. Dennis Gates just coming in, getting it done.
Yeah. In some ways, it's like doesn't even feel like it. I don't know. It's like this team is, man, they're so fun to watch. But it's like, it's almost like I know them too well, and it's like I know they're flawed, but I also know what they're capable of. But it just feels like this can't keep going on. Like they can't keep this up, and they do, and they keep pulling off wins, and they've been winning on the road here, and they've kind of had a favorable schedule down the stretch, but they took advantage of it, and they did exactly what they needed to do, and I don't think it's a fraudulent 22-win team, but at the same time, it kind of feels like I can't believe that we have 22 wins.
Yeah, because it felt like there's been multiple points now after the loss to Mississippi State earlier, the back-to-back losses to Auburn and A&M. It was like, okay, yeah, we were flirting with a top 4 seed, but we were never really that serious about it. This always felt like we were going to settle back into like 7th place, 8th place in the conference, and then we'll see what happens. But no, they've answered, and now put themselves in a spot where they actually could get the double bye.
Yeah.
And it's not a ridiculous scenario that needs to happen. They need some help.
Like a 30 to 40% chance, I would say, without running any solvers or anything, you know.
And just to spell that out here, obviously Missouri needs to win against Ole Miss, but then all that needs to happen is Auburn beat Tennessee on Saturday.
Yeah. So they can. I can't. You might have just said this, but they can get the 3 seed if Tennessee loses to Auburn and Kentucky loses to Arkansas. They can get the 4 seed if just one of those 2 games happen. Missouri has to win.
Yeah.
Missouri has to beat Ole Miss.
Yeah.
But as long as Kentucky or Tennessee loses, they will get the 4 seed.
Ooh.
So honestly, it's probably better than a 30 to 40% chance because
still got to win the game though.
Missouri has to win their game, but Kentucky is on the road at Bud Walton. That's a tough place to win.
Arkansas trying to make their case for seeding and all that.
Exactly. So they have some reasons to win for sure. And Tennessee's on the road at Auburn. And as we saw, that is a tough place to play.
Yeah.
And Bruce Pearl is, he's kind of mad these days.
An insane person.
So, so he'll probably have him ready to play. So I really do think that if I'm putting money on it, I think, which I'm not, but I think Missouri is a top 4 seed going into the SEC tournament.
We needed a little bit of help last night and got it. It both seemed unlikely a second, but
all 3 games, including Missouri's, obviously, was just like, I can't believe this happened. Like Vanderbilt pulled off a win at Rupp last night at the very end of the game. Yeah, just kind of came out of nowhere.
That last shot to win it was like kind of goofy looking, like he was about to travel, but then he made the fadeaway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Kentucky had to lose both their last games, and for them to kind of be involved, and they could have locked up the 3 seed last night.
Yeah,
and it could have been over, but they lose at home, and Vanderbilt's sneaky good. They're kind of like actually involved now. Yeah. And then Alabama was losing to Auburn at home by like double digits at one point. They come back and win in overtime. All of this is happening at the same time while Parker Edwards is draining threes on Missouri. Yes. So then it looked like, oh, we actually got the help we need, and now this is what we're going to do. We're going to go lose by 20 at LSU. Uh-huh. So it's all coming together a little bit here. Yeah. Stars are aligning a little bit.
We might have just spent all our good luck there.
Magic of
last
March,
night,
on the first day of March, and now it's over.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so that does bring us to the last game of the season. Saturday, we have Senior Day against Ole Miss for the season finale. Dennis Gates said 9 players will be recognized as seniors and do the Senior Day thing, but only Hodge, Gomillion, and Golston are out of eligibility. And so he said the going through Senior Day stuff does not determine anything for the other 6 players. Any of them could return.
He's not going to make him go get a real job or something.
Well, so far it doesn't seem like it.
He hasn't at least come out and said it like
Yeah.
the previous coach did.
Yeah, and considering he brought in Hodge, Gomillion, and Golston specifically to use up that 5th year, I feel pretty good about a decent chunk of these guys returning.
Speaking of a job, it sounds like Gomillion's got a job on the staff. Gates has been like pretty open.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's going to be on our staff next year, or
Sounds good
or
to
just
me.
at some point.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I kind of feel like everybody knew that was coming. But yeah, that does sound good. Yeah, I mean, just gut feeling. I mean, who do you think's coming back? I think Nick Honor will come back.
East is back.
East is back.
Who else are we even talking about here?
Is Noah Carter one of them, or is he a junior?
He's back.
He's back. I mean, obviously the big one's Kobe.
Yeah.
That's probably the one where like Kobe obviously has NBA prospects. I'm not sure what he's gonna do.
So the guys listed as technically seniors are that, not counting those 3, are Sean East. I think he's back.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Carter.
Back.
I think he's back. I guess we're actually talking about Mosley. Is technically a senior, but will he be one of these participating?
I have no idea.
That'd be a little bit strange, perhaps. And then I don't know how they're getting 9 guys, unless we're talking about a couple walk-ons. But
Oh, maybe.
yeah, the big one is Kobe. Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like
I think at one point in the season, I would have said he's coming back.
I don't think he gets drafted in the NBA.
I don't know if he gets drafted either, but
He could, he could go the Drew Smith route and just like try to grind it out in the G League and Summer League and stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, he is the opposite of like a prototypical NBA type prospect.
Forward, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like even though his shooting percentage has been really solid this year, I just feel like NBA staffs are going to think they need to rework some stuff with his shot to have it ready for the next level. That'll probably scare people away a little bit. I don't know.
We're talking ourselves into it.
Yeah. I feel like if I had to predict right now, I would predict Kobe returns.
Mm-hmm.
But that seems like too good of a thing to have happen
Yeah.
that I don't want to predict it.
Yeah, part of me thinks that he should just take advantage of the season he's had because analytically, I don't know that he's progressed every year. I don't know if he can progress a whole lot more than he has.
No, this feels like close to his ceiling.
I agree. But we've kind of said that about him last year, honestly, and he proved us wrong. So
He had those like ceiling moments last year, and now he's done that for like 3/4 of the season.
yeah. So I don't know. That's one that will come down to it, I'm sure, and he'll probably declare and then kind of see what his feedback is.
Absolutely. No reason not to do that. It does. Of course, this always happens, but I might as well embrace it. Like you get close to the end of the year, you start peeking ahead to next year, and what the team might look like, and it's going to be so intriguing because we're going to have to rely on younger guys a little bit more. But if Honor and East come back, I actually really like that as like the core of the foundation. Having those 2 guards that can run the show.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got that, I mean, that can get you a long way. Just having guards that know what they're doing, kind of facilitating the offense and not turning it over. That can get you pretty far ahead.
So what do we think about this Ole Miss game? Missouri beat Ole Miss back in Columbia in January, 89-77. Since then, Ole Miss has gone 2-8, and Coach Kermit Davis was fired. They are now 11-19, 3-14 in SEC play, 116 in KenPom, 145 on offense, 105 on defense.
That was a road game, not a home game.
That was at Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
They won. Missouri won big.
I was a little bit confused there because I heard you say Columbia, and I was like, oh, maybe I just misheard.
I wrote it down wrong.
Yes, that was a road win, which that was kind of like one of that was pretty much the first time we saw Missouri just dominate on the road. They looked like their normal selves, like they were shooting confidently and shooting well. And
That was that quiet arena game.
yes, so I would just fully expect that to repeat, I think. And sometimes they can get the fired coach bump. And honestly, Ole Miss has played pretty well since Kermit Davis was fired. It's only been like 2 or 3 games, but they've played hard. They've been in games, so I don't know that they're going to roll over and die either. But I expect Missouri to play well.
Yeah, I feel like Ole Miss is like in that perfect spot for an opponent where Ole Miss does not have much of an identity with their team. They're kind of going to be along for the ride and try to make enough shots to win, basically. They are not at all the type of team to impose their will. And even if they did, you wouldn't even recognize it because they're just kind of mediocre at too many things to be like, oh, this is Ole Miss really doing what they do best. But if Missouri's going to struggle at all in this one, it's going to be like, it makes me, watching the 2 first halves of these last 2 games, makes me worried that we're just going to have a game where we do that for the whole game. We're going to put together 2 bad shooting halves and just lose a game against an inferior opponent. But
that was the Auburn game.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we got.
According to the SEC standings, that's an inferior opponent, I guess.
Yeah, we got out of our system, man. No, anytime you play Missouri's defense, you're flirting with that. You're flirting with disaster, really, at any time, and you open yourself up to getting beat by a worse team. But at the same time, Missouri has not done that.
Yeah.
They have not had a single loss outside of Quad 1.
Yeah. Ole Miss, if this helps you at all, Ole Miss 3-point shooting percentage as a team, they're shooting 30% on the year. That's good for 345th in the country.
I'm not too scared of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll still shoot like 47% in this game and still lose by 15.
That sounds good to me. I'll take it. Yeah, nothing too terribly scary here from Ole Miss. Will they have the interim coach bump? Who knows? It's kind of a good year, I feel like.
They could and still lose by 15.
True. Kind of sneaky good time to be looking for a new coach. It seems like last year it was like they were right on the edge of firing Kermit Davis, and then
most people thought they would.
Right, but it was like that was the trend in the SEC last year. Was
That's
like
true.
Go find a new coach, and maybe it'll work out for them better that they just kept him for one more year, and now they'll be one of the few SEC programs looking for a new coach this offseason.
Yeah, if that was truly their rationale for keeping Kermit Davis, that's kind of savvy actually, and it could work out for them for sure. Because I think that unless an SEC coach moves up or something like that, I don't think anyone else is getting fired. So they might be the only team that's changing coaches this year.
Let's get our predictions and then remind me about a coach moving up.
Okay.
If I forget. You like a 15-point Missouri win.
Yeah,
I heard you say a few times.
I'm going to say Missouri wins by 15. I'm going to say 85-70 just because that's easy math.
Okay. Yeah, I think Missouri's going to win. I like 80 to 72. 8.1.
Okay.
And what did you say? 85-70?
Yep.
I like that too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I saw a random, it was kind of a clickbaity
You're going to say
tweet.
Dennis is leaving?
No.
Okay.
Well, there was something that, this is like the most generic piece of information ever, but this is the rumor, was a coach who is about to go to the NCAA tournament is also, from a Power 5 team, is also looking to depart and find a better job. That was it. I saw that on Twitter from like, what's his name? Matt Norlander.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love Matt Norlander.
Yeah. That was his little rumor. I hope
an
that was
SEC
him.
coach.
No.
Oh.
No. Just a coach.
A coach in
Yeah.
Power 5
Yeah.
is
Headed to the NCAA tournament.
They're good, headed to the tournament, but the coach wants to move up.
Yeah.
Openly.
Yeah. But he wouldn't say who.
Oh, okay. I thought you were like, I couldn't tell if you were like giving me some kind of like trivia. Like,
No.
Can you guess who it is?
No. It's more of like, is it coach? Is it Dennis?
We're going to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it could be.
We are a lock, and we
Yeah.
have been.
We
Wow,
are Power 5.
Thanks for that
okay.
anxiety.
In the tweet, he did say that there was buzz around it and that he would be willing to leave. So some people thinking Buzz Williams.
Ooh, okay.
That'd be something.
One of that Coach Drinkwitz
Yeah.
little wordplay or something.
That's what people were thinking in the replies to the
Okay.
tweet.
Okay, something to keep an eye on.
Um,
That wouldn't surprise me. He could. Yeah, I think he could move up.
he loves just like finding a landing spot that's like basically similar to where he already is, and then just going there. Like it went, like Marquette, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M. Now he'll go to like Minnesota or
Was
something.
there a break in there somewhere too? I don't know.
Maybe he took a year off. Let's before we finish up here, let's look at the seeding one more time. Obviously, nothing's updated exactly since last night's win, but man, it really feels like all the signs are pointing to Missouri being on that 8-9 seed line.
Yeah.
We don't love that.
I'm going to try not to just get on my soapbox here because I know that I've talked about this stuff before. We kind of touch on it every time about how the analytics don't agree with what I at least perceive Missouri's resume to be as far as like who have you beat, who have you lost to. If you look at the quad one system, if you look at like the quadrant system, which is of the net rankings, Missouri does not rank well in the net. I think they're like upper 40s.
Mm-hmm. Around 50, yeah.
And but at the same time, you look at the kind of the breakdown of who they beat in the quadrants. They do not have a loss outside of quadrant 1. They look far superior to really anybody in their direct vicinity in the net rankings, and they're behind teams like North Carolina who have like one quadrant win and that that kind of stuff. And so it's kind of a jumbled mess. I hope that the committee has the ability to kind of see past that, but I really don't know. I don't know, what's going to go into that. So I think Missouri, honestly, like, and I guess I'm biased. I will have to admit here, but if I'm doing a blind resume, like, I literally think Missouri looks more like a 6-7 seed traditionally, but I'm afraid they're going to fall on the 8-9 line.
So what's holding us back right now? Do you think it's more the early games? We needed a top 100 win in there sometime in November to go with all those 300 level wins? Or do you think it's more that in those quadrant 1 losses, a good portion of them are just blowouts where we were not competitive at all?
100% that. I don't think that the non-conference really affects anything that much unless you're losing.
Sure.
Missouri beat Iowa State handily, and I don't really think that moved the needle that much. I don't think that gets brought up in conversations. That's basically
Iowa State has
non-conference.
kind of fallen off a cliff.
They definitely have. But they were better at that time.
Yeah.
But 100%, I think it's Missouri's just polarizing analytics where they do certain things horribly, so that kind of pulls them down in the rankings. They're nearly 200th in defensive efficiency. So there are things that if you're not kind of reading between the lines like we are on this podcast, then you're just seeing Missouri ranks 50 plus in KenPom and that kind of stuff. Then you're just and I think sometimes the committee plays the conference game where the SEC doesn't look as strong in their eyes to the Big Ten or the Big 12, which honestly the Big Ten is not very good. The ACC is horrible.
I feel like Big Ten and SEC should be seen as equals.
Yes,
Yeah.
This year,
Yeah,
definitely.
this year.
But it's hard to look past brand name.
Sure,
and
sure.
I think that 100% plays a role. So And, if you really want to get down into the weeds of the analytics game in KenPom and net rankings, I definitely think that there's some kind of lasting impact that continues to affect teams the entire season based on where they start in the rankings. And I think that North Carolina is a great example of a team that started really high. I mean, they're probably a preseason top 5 team. They did really well in the NCAA tournament last year and had a lot of guys return. But they've had a very disappointing season, yet they still rank higher than Missouri in their rankings because I think there's probably some kind of pedigree bonus that they're getting in, for lack of a better term. They're kind of getting favoritism in the rankings throughout the season just because the model expects them to kind of regress to what they originally expected them to do. So that's I'm just thinking Missouri didn't have that. They weren't expected to be good this year.
Right.
And so
Arkansas is another example that's similar in that regard.
Exactly. Yeah, Arkansas is 15th in the net. So I don't know. I think there's a lot that goes into it, but Missouri's not going to look good in the analytics. So it's just all going to come down to what the committee favors.
Yeah, and it's not like we're hoping for a 5 seed.
Right.
Where you'd be like, oh, this is a team that should be able to compete against the top 4 seeds.
Which, if Arkansas had Missouri's exact resume, I think they'd be a 4 or 5 seed.
Potentially, yeah. Getting to the 7 seed would open things up as far as the possibilities of a run. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, Missouri basketball program has not won an NCAA tournament game in a billion years. So let's just win in round 1 and not worry about what happens after that.
I agree.
That's kind of where I'm at.
I agree with you.
But the good news is we're going to the NCAA tournament no matter what at this point.
Yep.
So that is fun.
We will not be sweating anything on Selection Sunday.
And I got to think back just for a second. We're almost done here, but preseason, we were like, oh, yeah, this is an NIT team with Isaiah Mosley in the fold. At best, we're maybe a bubble team, right? That's probably where our thinking was.
Yeah.
And we just crushed all of those expectations.
Without Mosley.
Yes. Feels good.
Feels good. How good is Cleveland State this year?
Let me look. That's a really good question.
I've not paid attention at all to Cleveland State.
Cleveland State is not terrible.
Oh,
Record-wise, 19-12, 14-6 in Horizon, 188 in KenPom. But even with that's the best team under Gates, KenPom-wise, was 169. So they were never going to get the love there because of their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't fallen off too terribly. That's what happens when you build a program,
Yeah, just lasting impact.
Yeah.
Build the statue.
Even if you take a few guys.
Yeah. So we got one more game before SEC tournament, which will start next. I guess Missouri will play on Thursday or Friday of next week, depending on how everything goes on Saturday.
Yep.
Fun times.
Yes, very exciting. Yeah, there's still so much up in the air, though, with the seeding of the SEC tournament. You can't even... We'll do a proper prediction once all that's final.
We have one game left, and I have no idea who Missouri's going to play in their first game, who they could play, whatever.
That is one frustrating thing about the SEC tournament with having the 4 teams play in the play-in game is it's not even worth it to try to okay, right now this is what the seeding would be, and we would play this team and then this team. I don't want to deal with it because the bottom 4 teams play each other first, and then
there's so much that can happen. But if we can somehow get a matchup in our first, if we can grab that 3 or 4 seed and somehow, I don't know how it'll work out, play Florida in our first game, that's basically the best possible thing that can happen.
Yeah, I would take.
Except Florida would have to beat somebody, potentially 2 teams.
Give me Florida, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt.
You want Mississippi State? You're welcoming that?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll take it. I'd rather play them. Who would you rather play, Mississippi State or Auburn?
I don't know. I was looking at that last night. Honestly, I don't love either of those teams. Auburn's been playing really well.
Okay.
I don't know.
Mississippi State or Arkansas? Yeah, I feel like I kind of lean Mississippi State on both of those.
Yeah.
Let's play Florida, and then Vanderbilt, and then Texas A&M.
I think there's a chance we could play Vanderbilt, but they would have to lose on Saturday. There'd have to be some things happen for sure, because at this point Vanderbilt is only probably one spot behind Missouri, maybe 2 spots.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to. Again, there's too much that can happen. We'll analyze it when we get there.
We'll see soon enough. Are we done here?
Yeah.
All right. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters at the $10 level and above: Britt Treese, Brian Smith, Ryan Demore, Tristan Ben Smith, Parker Daddy JD, Tim Keynes, Tyler Harsel, Brandon Garofalo, Brandon Hanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We're on Twitter at Mizzou Sports Pod, and you can email us at MissouriSportsPod@gmail.com.
You can find our t-shirts and stickers on our online shop, MissouriSportsPod.BigCartel.com.
Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you next week.